Today we're going to talk about the 2020 film Black Bear. It starts with Allison sitting in a pensive mood by a lake. She walks up to a house and starts writing in a notebook. Now here begins part 1 of the film. Allison, a filmmaker and former actor, goes on a retreat to a lakeside cottage. She stays in this bed and breakfast owned by Gabe, a musician, and his pregnant girlfriend, Blair, who used to be a dancer. Allison and Blair share some exchanges that are clearly quite forced, to the point of actually being snarky. Gabe shows Allison to her room, the same room we saw in the beginning of the film. Allison notices that Gabe and Blair don't get along very well. I mean, they don't even make an effort to hide their distaste for each other. That afternoon, Allison is scribbling in her notebook again, all the while deep in thought. Afterwards, she wants to go for a swim, and so Blair offers to show her to the lake. Blair senses that something is brewing between Allison and Gabe. Later, Allison is sitting by the lake again, and she seems to have had an epiphany. Like good hosts, Gabe and Blair invite Allison to a home-cooked dinner, but the dinner soon turns into this passive-aggressive disaster, with Gabe and Blair tearing each other down with comments about each other's families, careers, ideologies, and even cooking skills. Allison finds herself at the receiving end of some of this awkwardness when Blair tries to involve her in the conversation too. Blair finds Allison very hard to read, and she really struggles to figure out when Allison is lying and when she's being honest. To try and ease the tension, Allison asks Blair to teach her the foxtrot, a pretty popular dance. But it only gets more awkward when Blair suggests that Gabe should dance with Allison. Like I said, Allison and Gabe have this undeniable chemistry, which seems to be making Blair jealous. Blair continues to be rude to Allison, calling herself involved for acting in her own films and actually questioning her whole filmmaking process. Meanwhile, drunk on several glasses of wine, Gabe gets into another argument with Blair, this time about whether or not it's good that nuclear families and the traditional gender roles are melting away. Blair takes more of a feminist approach, but Gabe's opposing view heats up the argument. Allison just keeps jumping from side to side, and this pushes Blair over the edge. Furious, Blair runs to her room and starts packing up her stuff to leave. When Gabe tries to stop her, she tells him that she thinks he's attracted to Allison and might as well sleep with her. Gabe manages to calm Blair down by telling her that he isn't attracted to Allison and only loves Blair. They fall asleep cuddling. Gabe wakes up in the middle of the night and sees Allison walking towards the lake. He follows her, and together they take a dip in the lake. They get back to the boathouse attached to the cottage, where Gabe tells Allison that he doesn't really love Blair and is only with her because of the baby. Allison also confesses that she too has been lying to them about her personal life. As the two get physically intimate, they're confronted by a fuming Blair, who now realizes that Gabe lied straight to her face. A scuffle follows, and Gabe pushes Blair onto the sofa a little too roughly. She starts to bleed, after which Allison offers to drive her and Gabe to the hospital. But amid the nervousness and drama of the entire situation, a black bear suddenly appears on the road while Allison's driving, and she loses control of the wheel when she swerves to avoid hitting it. The car hits a tree, and part 1 of the film ends. Then part 2 begins with Allison sitting by the lake again, only this time she's an actor who is acting alongside a full film crew. The director of the film is none other than Gabe, and Gabe and Allison are married to each other. Allison gets into an argument with Gabe because she thinks he's giving more attention to her co-actor Blair, and that he doesn't ask Blair for as many retakes as he does her. Gabe yells at her for not following his orders. What Allison doesn't know is that Blair and Gabe are feigning an affair to bring out a more realistic performance from Allison, since the film they're making is, ironically enough, all about a guest upsetting a couple's relationship, much like part 1 of the film. But this fake behind-the-scenes romance between Gabe and Blair seriously affects Allison's mental state. She drinks a lot right before they're supposed to shoot the film's crucial last scene. It takes a lot of effort on the part of the crew to get Allison to sober up and be presentable enough to shoot the scene. In this particular scene, Allison is playing the male lead Mike's wife, while Blair's character is someone who has just come into their lives and forged a strong relation with Mike, something that threatens Allison's character. It's clear enough that the tables have turned in part 2, because in part 1, Blair was Gabe's jealous partner, while Allison was the intruder in their relationship. Towards the end of this scene, Allison is supposed to sit on top of Blair and hit her. However, overcome by her jealousy, Allison crosses the line between real life and begins to really hit Blair. Gabe says cut just in time to protect Blair from any more injury, but she's already bleeding. Allison is so overwhelmed with emotions of hatred and anger that she has to be taken upstairs and calmed down. When she finally comes back, Gabe asks her to restrain herself this time. Ultimately, this last scene goes well, and Allison pours her heart out when she tells Mike's character that he's supposed to love his wife and not Blair's character. Her emotion is so real that it takes a while for Gabe to console her. He takes her to the bedroom where she tells him that he should be with Blair because she's prettier and more in control of her emotions. Gabe finally tells her that he wasn't actually having an affair with Blair. However, when Allison falls asleep, Gabe slips away and goes to the lake to find Blair sitting by herself. They talk, and one thing leads to another, and what they had been faking all along becomes very real. Allison catches them red-handed, but before she can confront them, she encounters a black bear. In the last scene of this part, we see Allison casually walk towards the bear, perhaps to her death, perhaps not. As part 2 ends, we see Allison back on the pier by the lake. She goes back to her room, scribbling another story in her notebook as the film comes to a close. Now, Black Bear isn't your regular thriller. The thrill element of the film comes from an ending that's open to interpretation. In fact, the meaning of the entire film is pretty much up to the viewer's interpretation. Were any of the 2 parts actually a film within a film? Was Allison playing out the stories in her head? And if so, are we just supposed to be the bystanders in the psyche of Allison the filmmaker? You don't really know what's real and what's not in Black Bear's cinematic world. There are many interpretations out there, and I'm sure you have one of your own too. Now, I'm going to share one interpretation that I haven't come across too frequently on the internet, but one that I agree with. I think that the scenes in which Allison is sitting by the lake or writing in her room are the only true events in the film's world. Everything else is playing in Allison's mind, whether it's the memory of a past experience or a fictional story that she created. So the second part might have truly happened in Allison's life, back when she was an actor. But after her less than ideal experience on her last film, she decided to become a film director. She goes on her lakeside staycation and reimagines the chaotic lives of her hosts, replacing them with people from her own chaotic past. Let me know what your interpretation of Black Bear is. Be sure to like and share the video, and of course subscribe to the channel.